listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray, and today we're so excited. We have Trishia Powell, who is a 15-year licensed independent social worker and the co-owner and co-founder of Becoming Balanced here in Fargo, who focuses on women's mental health and more.
Trishia talks with us about everything mental health, postpartum depression, trauma, and everyday struggles that women endure. Her views on expectations are not only eye-opening, but inspirational in how to live a more fulfilled life.
So grab your cup and enjoy.
We're rolling.
We always start our podcast, and I think I probably say this every time. We're rolling.
Every time we acknowledge that we start it like this every time, but consistency is key here.
Consistency is key.
The other key is balance.
Which is why we have Trishia Powell, a licensed clinical social worker, and she is the owner and co-founder of Becoming Balanced. And we're so excited because we haven't had anybody like you on the podcast before, and I personally am excited to dive in and just learn a lot. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, okay, and something really, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about Becoming Balanced, but something super unique with you guys, it's all female office.
It is.
Another reason why we were like, okay, we need her on the pod because this fits so well. So tell us a little bit about how you guys decided to go that direction and what kind of separates you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, gosh, what year? So Becoming Balanced is 2 years old now, just turned 2 in July. Started I think it was in February sometime. Dr. Zilke, we worked together at a previous agency, and she came to me and she goes, I'm opening my own practice. Are you coming with me? And it really boiled down to the 9 to 5, really no flexibility, working in a big system and not being able to kind of be creative and do the things that we wanted and not feeling like we were making the difference we wanted to make. And so we did it. And then we opened the doors on July 1st, 2 years ago.
Oh
and that's kind of where we were born. As far as the women's only focus, I guess I worked with only women for a little while prior to making this switch. And I just really liked it. That's where most of my interests were in. I do a lot of maternal mental health, so pregnancy, postpartum, that kind of work. And so I just really, really like it. There wasn't anything else in the community that was women only focused. And so we just kind of went with it.
That is so cool.
That. I think it's so cool. And I think it's normalizing the stigma, and I think that's huge, especially with the past year and a half that we've had. Yeah. And I'm sure that you've seen a lot, Okay, very cool.
What is kind of the primary thing that you guys focus on?
Yeah. So when we started planning for Becoming Balanced, our ultimate goal, right? So I think this is still definitely our long-term plan is our vision is to be this one-stop shop for women, right? So, eventually we really hope to have someone in a medical type provider in there, a massage therapist. What we did for a while had somebody coming in doing yoga and a nutritionist, and a Reiki healer. So really we want to expand up to that. As you mentioned, the pandemic has kind of shifted that a little bit. I'd say maybe it's just on the back burner, but there's such a need for mental health services right now that we've just really found that that's been a need. But yeah, we still have that goal in the back of our mind of we want to be this one-stop shop for women. Right now, we are primarily focused on mental health. Cool. But yeah, so, depression, anxiety, I do a lot of that maternal mental health. Dr. Zilke focuses on, she's trained in health psychology. And so that's also something a little unique that you don't see a lot of.
So what exactly is that?
So people with chronic illnesses, so diabetes, heart disease, sleep problems, those types of things. So she's specially trained to treat those things from the behavioral aspect.
Okay, cool. Okay, so what are some of the common behaviors and things that you guys will teach or will help your clients with?
So we really try to focus like on evidence-based treatment, right? But we both will tell you, like, at the end of the day, like, we're going to do what works for each individual, right? Like, we try to keep it really individualized. So we do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, looking at like your thought process and helping you to change the thought process. How do your thoughts connect to your behaviors, things like that. Lifestyle, right? Like just like sleep hygiene, like I'm not sleeping or I'm tired all day. Well, okay, are you getting sleep? Are you drinking water? Are you eating? What's your diet look like, or your what does your schedule look like? So some of that stuff, where even like lots of women come in and they're like, well, that just is so basic. Why didn't I think of that? But it's just like, but we don't always.
Right.
So yeah.
Sometimes you need that outside perspective just to kind of debunk those obvious things that are right in front of you. And I would imagine that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like everyone that I know deals with stress. That's something that everyone can relate to on some level. So I'm interested to hear, what are some things that you focus on with your patients to help with stress?
Sure. Oh, that's such a broad category. So expectations is a big one that I talk with people about, is like, what are your expectations of not just others, but also yourself? It's huge. Like, we are our own worst critic, our biggest critic, I should say. And how can you speak to yourself like you would speak to your best friend, right? Or somebody you love, because that's more realistic. And like you have to be nice to yourself, right? So that's a big one. Definitely the expectations, along with kind of our overall focus, right? And like our big dream. Part of it is like just overall wellness, right? Like focusing on mind, body, spirit, like all of it. Because we're a whole being, and we really want to focus on that. Something else unique to our practice is we have what we call the treadmill office. So we've got 2 treadmills that face each other. And so if you want to come in and do that during your session, we really, really encourage that, because, right, like movement is so important. It helps with so much, right? We all know that. So yeah, you can have your therapy session on a treadmill, and so we're facing each other, we're walking, we're doing the therapy, and that's just like in general good, right? And then also like really good for people who have a lot of anxiety, and it's really hard to sometimes even just come up with, what is it that I need to address today? Where if you're moving and doing something with yourself, your body, it's just a really good tool.
I'm obsessed with that.
I love that idea. I've actually never heard of that. That is so cool. And you feel really good on the inside. You look good on the outside. So then, I shouldn't say it like that, but you just feel good all around, and especially looking at your guys' long-term goals for the practice. I'm incorporating all of that. I think that's great. Like coming full circle.
Yes.
And pointing out, another thing too, we really talk a lot about is like, okay, well, don't have this plan that you're going to exercise 3 hours a day, because like you're not, like, you have to start small, right? So like, even if you can start with, okay, when you come in for your session, we're gonna walk for 30 minutes on the treadmill. Hey, you got 30 minutes of exercise today, or this week, right? Yeah. So
therapy check, exercise check. What more do you need?
Exactly.
I love that idea.
Me too.
For people who are like, I do not stop moving. I'm playing with like my pop socket right now. Like, I feel like I always have to be doing something. And that definitely allows, I think, people like that to just focus on what the conversation is, what's our goal here. That's so unique. Yeah. Really cool. So those are all great ways to kind of get through stress. What are some other major focuses or issues that you constantly see? You mentioned how in the beginning of our conversation that there's things that you'll bring up and people will say, why didn't I think of that? What are some of those things that maybe people overlook?
I think just how basic things, just like the example I gave of, like, you don't have to run a marathon to be active, or taking 5 minutes out of your day, like something I work on a lot with moms, new mom. Any parent really, right, is like, okay, so your life is crazy right now. Like, that's just like, this is the stage of life you're in. So we can't necessarily change some of this. So how can we work something in, or like, you know, how can you make it work with your life, right? So like, you're home with your kids, so maybe you can't have an hour, but can you take 5 minutes to do something? Or can you pop your earbuds in and listen to a podcast or some music that you enjoy? You know what I mean? Like, just kind of those simple things that you can just kind of slide in, and just what a difference those little things even make. Stepping outside for for some fresh air every once in a while, petting the dog, so just how basic things can be, is just really important. And that also, it's okay to ask for help, right? Like, I mean, if the last year has taught us anything, last year and a half, like, holy cow, like, life's overwhelming. There's a lot going on. There's a lot we can't control. And so what can we do with that?
That is, I really like all those examples you brought up, and I think something that I would personally really benefit from is just the intention of, like, I get to take a step outside, and I get to have 5 minutes to pet my dog, just like making sure that you're recognizing those moments where, I am actually having time for myself.
Right.
Just sometimes you're on autopilot and don't even realize it.
And sometimes you just are going a million miles an hour. You can't really enjoy where you're at, and that's something I personally am really trying to work on. I think the 4th of July was great because I had some time away to unplug, so it was great for me to be like, okay, I'm enjoying this where I'm at right now, and I think, I'm sure that's hard for everybody, but
paying attention to the moment.
So, I mean, okay, we kind of talked about stress. What about unhealthy relationships? What is kind of a key sign or something when it's like, I need to walk away? How do you know when that time is right?
That's a good question. So I'm not a relationship therapist by any means, right?
Even situation, I guess.
Yeah. I don't do couples counseling or anything like that, but we, like, of course you see that a lot. Honestly, the go-to is like, all right, like, what parts of this can you control? How much are you giving? How much are they giving? I don't think there's really like a set answer for that. But it really is, it does come down to, like, you cannot just wave a magic wand and change this person, right? And so really working towards acceptance of that, and then recognizing, like, okay, well, if you choose to stay in this relationship, what are the pieces that we just have to work to accept, and what are the pieces that are like that are game changers, right? Like that you have to walk away. So working through that, and then regardless of what the end result is, working on acceptance of that, right? Like I always tell people, you don't have to like something to accept it, but there's so much in life that we have to accept.
It's a great outlook. Weighing, what am I going to accept, and what am I going to put up with, and what am I not putting up with? I feel like you get to probably work with such a variety of people and so many different avenues of life, and even talking about motherhood, big monumental moments of people's lives. There's got to be a lot of reward in that. So what would you say is the most rewarding part of your job?
We feel honored every day when we get all the people we get to meet and build these relationships with, and even seeing those small wins, I think that's it, right? Like just seeing them and clients, women coming in and telling us, like, you'd be so proud of me, or like, guess what I did, right? And when it's like, this is something we worked on for a while, or, maybe we talked about it one time and it clicked and they took action, right? So I think that is just like when you see what you're doing, making that difference. And honestly, just the relationships. It's just, it's fun. It's awesome.
How long do you typically work with an individual?
It's super individualized. Like we've all got some gals who we worked with, from the previous agencies we've worked at. And then sometimes I'll see them for 2 or 3 sessions.
Okay.
And so it varies a ton.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then there's
Okay.
specific therapies that are an X amount of sessions, and then you're done. I always tell my people, though, I'm always like, it is my goal to not have you in therapy for the rest of your life, right? Like,
yeah.
so like, I want to help you work through this and build up your toolbox, and then send you on your way and get back to life. I mean, not like you take a break from life, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you don't go to the doctor when you're not sick, right? And so it's like, if you don't need to come, like, let's just get you back to what you're doing and know that, like, empower them to do what they know, empower them to do what they can.
Yeah.
I love that word empowerment.
We really do.
We use it all the time, but I love hearing other people talk about it and relating it back to their life and their business. So how do you stay inspired?
That's a good question.
I'm full of good questions today.
Honestly, in our practice, we try to really build each other up all the time. We're very supportive of each other. Like, life gets crazy, and we will, like, literally just take a minute and be like, all right, we need to, like, stop. We need to regroup. So supporting each other. And our clients really keep us going too. It's like, you're there for them, making a difference. I guess those are the biggest things, It's just, and I think also, like, this being kind of our baby, it's been just becoming balanced is just, like, we're just growing. Like, we went from just Dr. Zilke and I to now in a month, there'll be 4 of us, providers. And so, just like seeing that grow from nothing to what it is today, is really inspiring too. And then thinking about, right, like the big picture and like, where are we going to be in 5 years? Like, it's super fun to think about that.
Having those goals.
Yeah. Cause 2 years ago, I never would have thought like that, it would be where it is today, right? So it's like
crazy.
Yeah.
How things can change.
Yes.
Even
through the pandemic.
Yeah.
You're like,
no
it's like,
kidding. Look at what you guys did for such a crazy year. I mean, think of what you can do with normalcy.
Right?
A little bit of normalcy we're going to.
So not to just talk about COVID, but was it all telehealth then? Is that okay?
We literally within, I think, 2 days switched everything to, like, it was wild. Switched everything to telehealth. I mean, we had the goal of eventually offering telehealth, for rural communities and things, or people that couldn't get in. But yeah, it was like, well, here we go. And then we changed. And now we just returned in person this week.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like, and then it's like, now it's like,
shocking.
yes, because it's like telehealth was the norm, and now like you go back to this, and it's like, well, now this is weird.
So do you offer both options now?
We do offer both options. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's exciting too.
I feel like that was the one great thing to come out of,
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it stays that way. It's more access for people.
Well, and think of how many more people that you can help and serve, people who aren't even in Fargo,
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
I think it's just more accessible for people. Yeah.
Totally. So I love hearing kind of those bits and pieces that inspire you. I think you guys have so many great things coming, but do you rely on any type of books or literature or maybe conferences? Are there any things like that are either beneficial to you but would also be beneficial for maybe some of our listeners to read and dig into?
So we're big fans of Brene Brown.
Okay.
I like her too.
I've never heard of her.
Dr. Zilke, I think it's Danielle Laporte she's a big fan of.
Okay.
I'm not a huge reader. So obviously, like, we're always doing trainings and everything, to further our skills. One thing we do hope to also eventually offer is, like, community education, right? So like, we'll put on like a seminar about stress management, or we really hope that we have plans to do that one day. We literally were just going to start doing that, and then COVID hit.
Of course.
So we do plan to do those types of things.
Those are great authors, though. I read one of Brene's books, and I'm drawing a blank on the title, but it's like red and black on the cover.
What are the like genres? Like, is it self-help?
Self-help.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like Daring Greatly is one of them. She's just like, she's so authentic.
Yeah.
And so like, just, Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's an easy read, but the books definitely aren't super thick. So you can kind of buzz through them, you know, and highlight and go back. But, you know, that would be so cool if you guys did seminars. I could definitely see you doing that even like, I think there's always a women's conference in the fall. That would be cool. Or even at NDSU or, you know.
Anywhere.
Anywhere, really.
Anywhere. The need is so there. And let me know if you agree with this, but I think a lot of people are scared sometimes
for sure
to get that help because I think sometimes people perceive it as being weak and saying like, oh, something's wrong with me, so I have to go here. When I know you mentioned that your goal is to get people out, but I've actually heard with, you know, other areas that sometimes the best sessions happen when you feel great.
Yep.
Do you see that?
Yep, we do. Yep.
Okay.
And again, like, you know, it's really just like we all are very like individualized, right? So like I tell my people, I'm like, even if we like, you know, if you're done with this course, like that does not mean that you can't come back or like, you know, a few months down the road or we just schedule out. We just are like, all right, I'll see you in 6 months just for like a check-in or whatever. So absolutely. Yeah. And that's really like fun for both us and the client because they can come back and be like, well, yeah, I did this that we talked about and everything's great. Right? So it's,
How do you think that most people kind of, what is that turning point where people start to think, okay, I do need to go, you know, take on some resources? What is it typically that people, you know, experience where they reach out to you?
I would say, I mean, typically some major interruption in, you know, like parenting or relationships or job or, you know, something kind of bigger happens that kind of pushes them. Or they just kind of think, like, I see a lot of people who are like, yeah, I've had anxiety my whole life and I've never done anything about it. Really? Or I never realized that this is what it was. Right. So then they're like, okay. And then it's really having those conversations of like, hey, like I've seen a therapist before, right? You know, and like just like destigmatizing it because it's very much just like everybody needs help sometimes, right? Like there's all the seasons of life and sometimes you just have to reach out and do that. And sometimes just being real and having those conversations and then the benefit they see from it and, you know, and I think them we have a very like comfortable, relaxed environment, right? Like them realizing like, okay, this is not coming in and laying down on a couch.
Yes,
you know,
that's exactly what I think about. That's exactly where my head goes.
Yeah, you know, it's like you come in, we like you direct what we're talking about. You know, like you have a say in what we're doing. And so I think just, you know, not making it like it doesn't fit in this little box.
Yeah.
That's huge for people.
Totally.
I think that's, you know, obviously going to get people in the door and then get them to coming back. For sure.
How long are your sessions typically?
Yeah, typically about like 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone can squeeze in 45 minutes somewhere in their life.
Yeah. We recently started something we didn't have before is like trauma-related treatment, which is just incredibly important because almost everybody you see, like, it comes up, right? And so that is helpful. And coming to a place that is all women feels very safe for a lot of people. So that I think is a good resource and something that sets us aside. And then the new gal we have coming in August, she's certified in, I think she's got a degree in exercise psychology.
Okay.
So like working with athletes and stuff.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So Saray
super excited.
was a huge dancer and she used to be a dance coach. So anything like that's up her alley.
You might have to have her.
We might because the athlete mind, I mean, dance especially, there's just some stuff that can go haywire that you would never imagine.
Yeah.
That will be really unique
really
and really cool to
Yeah.
have. Exciting.
It's so cool to promote that and bring that. Absolutely.
It's fun.
So what are some of your favorite ways to recommend or even do to promote relaxation and that work-life balance? How do you, because you're a mom of 3, you're married, you own your own business, you're so busy.
You need to relax sometimes.
You gotta relax too. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, like, becoming balanced, right? Like when we came up with the name, it's like that is just like life, or like it's never just a done thing. Like you have to continuously work at it. A lot of those things I talked about earlier, as far as like taking the 5 minutes and, you know, because I'm like, I used to be the person that's like, I'm just going to work through lunch because then I can leave earlier, you know, or it's like, well, no, actually, if I take some 5-minute breaks throughout the day, I'm way more productive. You know, so doing those things, asking other people for help. Like I do it, right? Like I take days off. You have to do it. You have to do those things. Hobbies. I mean, I don't have a lot of time for hobbies. But
your hobby is relaxing.
Yeah.
I did finally get back into golfing this year, so I'm like, yay!
We should go together. Love golfing.
Like my son's 12, and I'm like, I literally have hardly golfed in 12 years. So yeah. So I mean, I honestly like making yourself a priority once in a while, which I think I think women in general have a really hard time with, and so we are just like, I don't know, like wired to put everybody else first, which is just silly. So making yourself a priority is just like super important, whatever magnitude that is, right?
Definitely. And finding something that you love doing.
Yeah.
I think everybody's idea of relaxing is going to be different.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't know if golf is super relaxing. I'm kind of bad at it. I went with Paige for the first time 2 weeks ago, and it was rough.
But it was fun. Because we were together. But I mean, it's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. And what you find relaxing, I probably wouldn't. Like Saray loves to rhinestone stuff, and I'd be like, no thanks.
That's stressful.
I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah. No.
But you know, like some people like doing like yoga, and some people like doing relaxation, and then there's other people that are like, I do not have an hour a day to do that. So then I'm like, do it for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, and I definitely live by that because it's like, it's literally the time I have, right? Like we're literally running from 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. And so what options are there? What can I fit in here?
Yeah, totally. Craziness. I want to bounce back, going back to, I think you had mentioned something about trauma, and I just feel like that is just a topic that a lot of people don't talk about. I never hear people talk about it, or if you do, it's in a super intimate setting, which is what you guys offer. What advice would you give to someone who maybe has gone through something and they don't know what to do?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is reaching out, and it's so hard because it's, you know, it's such a vulnerable area. But it doesn't have to be, right? And so I think finding the right person who has, you know, the right background and it doesn't have to be like that, you know, it will be, right? Like I wish I could say it's not, but it will be. But there's help for it, right? And so it's uncomfortable, but it's also really uncomfortable to just continue to live that way, right? And so there's definitely hope for things to improve and for you to live a more fulfilling life if you go down that road, compared to if you don't.
Do you think a lot of people don't necessarily even realize they've been through trauma?
Absolutely. Yep. Or it's kind of, you know, like, well, is this or is this not?
Yeah.
Or is it, you know? And so, you know, like sometimes I tell people like, well, if it was hard for you, then yeah. And I mean, trauma is kind of a broad term too, right? So, but it's like, it doesn't matter if your best friend had something way worse happen to them. Like if it was hard for you, then it was hard, and that's all that matters. And so like, let's talk about it and let's help you find a way to, you know, come to good terms with it. Or, you know, if it is something more serious, then like, let's get you on the right track to recovery, right? Like there's a lot out there that can be helpful.
I absolutely love that. Because I think, I mean, when I think trauma, you know, I think kind of the stereotypical, you know, accidents or abuse, whatever it might be, those really heavy things. But I love that you said if it didn't make you feel good, that's valid.
Right.
Like, your feelings are valid. It doesn't matter what you've seen or what your friend has experienced. If you don't feel good and if it doesn't sit right with you.
Yeah. If it's impacting your life, right? Like, that's when it's, I mean, if it's impacting your day-to-day functioning, like, just come see somebody, anybody, right? So you can live a more fulfilling life.
That is so awesome
that you
guys offer that.
Yeah. And that's something you've always offered, right? Or is that
the
new?
trauma work?
Yeah.
It's new. We got somebody who, we had somebody come in who's, like, she's worked with it a lot. And then I recently have been trained too. And so,
So awesome.
That is so awesome. Yes.
But it sounds like you have a huge focus in mothers. And whether it's pregnancy, postpartum, or currently, new moms. What is some advice to maybe some of our younger moms or people who are expecting to be moms? What advice can you give?
Right. Just, like, talk about it. I think it's one of those things that, like, and it is a very exciting time, right? Like, you don't want to take away from the excitement of it. But my passion for that came from my own struggle with postpartum depression after having my first child. And then just, like, there really being nothing and nobody's saying anything. And, I mean, that was 12 years ago. So thank goodness things have changed a bit since then. But, you have this feeling where it's like, it's supposed to be happy and great. And, my friend said this was the best minute of their life. And, then you don't feel that way. And it's like, oh, what's wrong with me, right? So it's okay to talk about it. And more than likely, more people are going to identify with you than you think.
Yeah.
And so talking about it and making sure you're asking for help and watching your I talk so much about expectations, but, like, watching your expectations of yourself particularly, because that's just, it's a big piece of being a mom, and, like, you're not going to do everything perfect because there's no book that comes along with that. So being easy on yourself, granting yourself some grace, because that's what life is. That's important.
Yeah. Super needed.
That was awesome.
And I love the expectation things. I think we've talked about, social media and just how people present themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And I swear probably
I hate
half
social
of our,
media.
half of our
It's so
podcast.
bad.
Another huge thing. Yeah.
But it's, people are posting how great it is and how, their new addition to their family is the best thing ever. But I'm super curious about, and Paige and I, we're not moms. Most of our friends aren't moms yet, so we don't have a lot of experience other than our moms.
Right.
Currently, which probably don't remember. So what do new mothers experience when that postpartum depression happens? So, I mean, is it just not feeling excited or that comparison? What does that feel like?
Yeah. So usually it's similar to symptoms of depression. So lack of interest in things, not enjoying things like you normally would, having a hard time sleeping, even if you have the opportunity to sleep, appetite, those types of things. So a large percentage of women experience, like, the baby blues, which happens, like, usually resolves on its own after 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
If it goes longer than that, it's probably postpartum depression.
Interesting.
And then postpartum anxiety is something, like, it's not actually, like, in the diagnostic book, right?
Okay.
But it's, like, also very prevalent, right? Like, not being able to lay the baby down or not letting someone else hold the baby because you're too worried something's going to happen.
Wow. Okay.
Or, like, intrusive thoughts, like, if I'm standing by steps, like, what happens if I drop the baby, right? Like, I like to normalize those thoughts because they sound super scary, and sometimes it's scary to talk about those and acknowledge those, but it's also so important for moms to know, like, these are pretty normal. Like, moms have these, and if you're talking about them, if you're bothered by them, good. Like, let's talk about them. Let's make sure that things are okay, and knowing there's help, and knowing that it's not your fault you're experiencing those, because that's the other thing is, like, it's just a huge change, and you've got the hormone changes or, hormone shifts happening, and it's just so much at once. And of course you feel like it's your fault, and it's not. And that's probably the most important thing to remember. Like, it's not your fault, and with help, you can be well.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never heard any of that. I didn't realize the 2-week thing, and
I didn't know the 2-week thing. I've heard about it, but I didn't know that it was like a certain window. So is it super common to feel like that the first 2 weeks after? It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that is super, super interesting. So I think, I mean, just to kind of overview that is expectations.
Yeah.
I love that is a reoccurring kind of word, because I think we all put huge expectations on ourselves because we're able to connect ourselves to so many other people's experiences.
Yeah.
It's really easy to think like, oh, well, so-and-so had, this happen. I should have this happen.
Yeah.
Or I feel like, too, that a lot of it is you have really high expectations for yourself, so therefore you have them for other people. But like you said, show people grace, because not everybody's the same. Everybody's different. You never know what people are going through or feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's really huge, too.
And the social media comparison is like, okay, it's not.
Does that come up a lot in
Do you
your
have a lot
guys'
of clients?
Tons.
Really?
Tons. Yeah. I mean, I mean, of course, like working with moms, it's like a ton. It's like, well, so-and-so's kid walked when they were this old, and, and it's like, well, like we can't compare everything, and even the way you're doing things. And so that's a huge kind of anxiety pusher for people too.
Social media is really great to highlight the best parts of your life, but you don't see the crap.
It can be really good, and it can be really damaging. It's unfortunate that it's got very two ends of the spectrum of like really great at bringing people together and like highlighting amazing things, but really bad about kind of hurting people.
Yes.
So, okay, remind me again, I know you said this, but how long have you been doing this for?
I have been doing therapy for, oh gosh, I didn't say that.
Did you not?
What year is it? So it's
We thought 15 years.
21. Yeah, about 15.
Oh,
15 years.
Okay. That's so long.
So I'm just going off of the social media thing, and that's just one example, but that's really developed in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what changes you have seen within your patients from, your first early years in the industry to now. Is there a big difference?
I mean, I should specify, like, way back when I wasn't doing just strictly therapy. I did, like, crisis management more stuff.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't know. Last year changed a lot of things, honestly. I hate to keep bringing it up because, like, everyone's sick of talking about it. But it's true, right? Yeah. It's just like the world kind of stopped and we all had to do all of these different things. So, I mean, the social media is a huge thing. And I think it also like just feeds a lot of anxiety in general, because we have access to all this information all of the time. And it's hard to turn it off. People can't turn it off. People aren't willing to turn it off. Yeah. And so it's constantly triggering all of that, right, in your mind. And so it's constantly triggering all these thoughts and all this anxiety. And so for someone with anxiety, that is just like, it just feeds it, and so that probably is one of the biggest things. It's just, and there's not much we can do about it.
I was just going to ask, do you have any exercises or anything that you tell your...
Yeah, I mean, we definitely work on that as far as like, okay, so we are going to, if they're not willing to eliminate it, like how can you need to set times during the day that you're only allowed to be on it for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, set a timer, also just kind of weighing, like, how important is this to you in your life, right? Like, what are you using Facebook for? Are you using it to stay in touch with people, or are you just mindlessly scrolling, right?
That's a really great way to look at it.
What are the other things you could, because I'm guilty of it too, right? Like we'll go through all the different platforms and that's what we do to relax, right?
Yeah.
But like, how else can you fill that time? Like, is that a good use of your time? Is that filling your cup? No, it's not. It's actually hurting you. So let's think of what else we can do. Like read a book, listen to a podcast, listen to some music, go for a walk, right? Like what are the other options? Because that's not helping.
Yeah. We had Missy from Bio Girls on our podcast, and we asked her a couple questions about social media as well. And one thing that she said that I really liked, which I think is really correlated with everything you said, but she will tell her daughters, you know, is this person that you're following someone you would invite to a party? And if not, why are you following them? Why do you want to know what's going on in their life? Why do you want to compare your life to them when they really don't have a special place in your world? So I thought that was super relevant. And I like that you highlighted what's mindless and what's connecting. Because that was the purpose for it. The purpose was to build connection.
Right.
And to stay in touch with family who are far away or friends who are far away, you know.
Or, you know, if that's the last thing you're doing, like when you go to bed at night, you know, scrolling or whatever it might be, like looking up something specific, it's like, well, that's putting you into your sleep, right? And like, so you're having a hard time sleeping. So, okay, and like, what can we do different? You know what I mean? Because that is like, that's setting the tone for your night. And then it's going to be the first thing you think about when you wake up. Like, you know, let's just change some of these behaviors.
The 30 minutes before you go to sleep are super important, right?
Yep.
Well, they always say like the last thing that you do or the last thing that you see, you either dream about or you can't sleep because you're thinking about it, right? Is that...
I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard that before, but yeah. I mean, I always recommend everybody just doesn't use screens like an hour before bed, like any type of screen.
Okay.
But I have a good friend who she actually keeps her phone in a separate room.
Really?
Their bedroom. She like leaves it out in her, I think her kitchen or somewhere.
Does she just have like a real alarm clock?
Wow. Isn't that mind blowing? What is a real alarm clock? Like those exist? Yeah. She has a real alarm clock and keeps her phone outside so that way when she's like tired, she's like, okay, I'm done with my phone. Like I can't be on my phone when I'm tired. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, gosh, I don't have the strength yet.
I know. I'm trying to get there. I know.
I try to put it down at least 30 minutes before and like, but it's hard to not have it in their own.
It is. I know.
What do you do?
So I'm curious about journaling. I'm curious on advice that you have for that. I like to journal. I do it usually in the mornings, but are there certain like exercises or certain things that you recommend for people who are trying to get into journaling or who want to?
So there are some like guided journals out there. I don't have any specific recommendations, but like a big thing is like gratitude journaling, right? So focusing on gratitude, that's super helpful. I recommend that quite often. My big thing about journaling, and this I don't think is like science-based at all, but my big thing about journaling is I'm like, if you're gonna journal, like you're not just dumping all the crap, right? Like that's helpful. However, like how helpful is it? You know, so I'm like, if you're gonna dump it all, that's fine. But I also want you to include, I guess it could be, you know, like gratitude. I want you to identify, you know, what are 3 good things that happened that day, or like what is going well, because you have to find some of that balance, you know? So some people though do really find help, like I've heard a lot of people call it like the mind dump, right? Where it's just like, I'm just going to write it all down. But I always encourage if people are going to do that they need to also be balancing that with like, okay, but there is, right? Like, even if it's like, I took a shower today, or
like there's always a positive.
I saw the sun today, right? Like, I mean, it can be anything, really, you know.
That is so true. Those were great examples.
They were great examples.
Yeah, showers are awesome. Like, we need to take appreciance for those.
It's the little things, the little wins. Well, we have a really fun game for you, and we're so excited.
We did some research, and we were looking at your guys' website, and you have a special page for your guys' dogs.
Oh, yes.
Which, love that.
We love dogs. Obviously, Buxton is right here with us.
The funny thing is, none of them are my dogs.
Are they not?
No, my dog, we had to put our dog down last year.
Oh,
but
it's your office dogs.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I might not know the information.
Oh, no. Don't worry. This has nothing to do with them, but you guys value canines within the office. You believe that they have some good value to some of your patients. So we wanted to highlight some really cool things that canines have done.
Okay.
But we're going to test you on whether it was a dog or a human.
Oh, nice.
That's
fun. Okay.
So we'll give you the heroic act, and then you have to say if it was a dog or human.
Okay.
Who did this?
I like this.
It's pretty
It's good. It's good. I'm gonna turn my computer so you can't
Okay.
see.
I can't see that part.
Same. I need my eyes checked. Just kidding.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so the first one is blank served with the U.S. Department of State and the Army in Iraq and Afghanistan for several years, helping find explosives.
Dog.
Correct.
You're correct. That was dog. Isn't that wild?
That is.
I think that's wild.
They're incredible.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Blank performs many tasks such as helping serve members returning from war zones with their balance and providing hearing impairment support.
Dogs.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah.
Wild. The hearing impairment thing, I was
I
just
know.
like, what?
Yeah.
Dogs are so smart. Okay. Blank jumped onto a subway to save a homeless man who fell.
Dog.
Human.
That was
Is it?
a
That was a
human.
human.
I was like, well, yeah, okay, they couldn't get him out of there. That should be a human.
I think I would have guessed dog
You
too,
never
though.
know.
You
We
never
really
know.
we tried to pick stump ones.
Yeah.
We're trying to trick you here.
Okay.
All right. A man was crossing a street in downtown Sacramento and approached railroad tracks when blank pulled them away from the tracks and the train missed them because of it.
Human.
Dog! Isn't that incredible?
That's
It's
awesome.
insane.
Yes.
Okay, blank saved a child who was drowning in water.
Human.
Yes.
You are correct.
I wanted to say dog.
You are correct. If a dog could do that, which they probably can.
And I'm like,
but-
how big was the kid?
Yeah. What age? 3-year-old, 6-year-old? What are we working with here? All right. Last one. First responders had to race against time to save an elderly woman lost in the woods. Blank found her and saved the 77-year-old woman with diabetes and dementia who was lost for 2 nights without food, water, or meds.
I think dog.
Correct.
You are
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
So more of the story, dogs are awesome.
Dogs are awesome. Continue to keep them in your office.
I
Because
love them.
Do you have them in
Great.
there with sessions and stuff?
Yeah, we
It's
ask.
amazing.
We even have symptom screeners or whatever, and on the back of it is like, do you want to use the treadmill today? And then one is, do you have any concerns about our canine friends or whatever? So we let if somebody doesn't want it, then we don't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's so fun. I
I
think
do
dogs
too.
de-stress people.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a puddle every time I see a dog.
And then
I
sometimes
know.
people are like, the dog's not here today. And they're like, well, next time I come, you better have a dog.
Cute. That is
It's
so
funny.
fun.
I actually have one of my clients who has a French din. I love French bulldogs.
Okay.
So he's half French bulldog, half Boston Terrier. He was there the first time, and then I went back and he wasn't, and I actually said the same thing. I'm like, I was hoping your dog would have been.
Oh my god.
But where's the dog?
But where's the dog? Like, I'm happy to see you, but where's the dog? No.
So cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
We used to have miniature dachshunds. My husband's like,
I had one growing up.
I know, they love them.
Yeah.
They're sweet.
They're so
All
sweet.
dogs are great dogs.
Well, we got off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you did very good. I think you got over half correct. I
Yeah.
wasn't honestly keeping track, but
You did well.
I think you did good.
Yeah.
So you got the dogs. You got a lot of really great support and a lot of great things at Becoming Balanced. So tell everybody where they can find you and how they can get involved.
Yes. So our address is 4610 Amber Valley Parkway South, Suite F. And our phone number is 701-551-1840. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And a website, of course, is becomingbalancednd.com.
Amazing.
Yay.
We'll have that all linked as
Yeah.
well on YouTube and within the podcast.
Yeah.
So make sure to look through those links, follow these guys, and we'll have to have you and some of your team back.
Yeah. This was so fun. You did so well.
Yeah,
I loved
you
it.
did. And
So thank you.
thank you so much. Cheers to the weekend.
Cheers to a
And
sparkling
becoming
batter.
balanced.